I'm going to share with you how $7 million in assets almost ruined me, but I'm also going to share with you what it is I did to get me the life and successful business that I was looking for. You see, when I got started out in real estate investing, I believed all of the concepts that I was being taught. I pursued them with everything. I took action, everything from, buying assets and good debt and bad debt and doing all of these different things. But my start in real estate investing was as a wholesale flipper. I did do some rehabs, but I was primarily a wholesaler. And I was really fortunate. Without a team and things like that, I did 105 flips in my first 2 years. After that, I just continued at that pace, about 50 to 60, 65 deals a year. And I started making really good money doing those deals. And then I wanted to do the right thing. And I went actually to the pastor of my church and told him, hey, I'm making all this money and I want to do the right thing with it. And he said, Steve, I'm going to introduce you to a few people. And he introduced me to an estate planner. He introduced me to other business owners. He introduced me to an accountant and, basically said, hey, there's this young guy. He's doing really good and he wants to do the right thing. And they were all happy to get together with me and to help me. And, obviously they were hoping I'd become a client. But collectively, they were all working to give me a plan of what it is I should do. And I took their plan and I followed it to the T. I did everything that they told me to do. And within 3 years, I had acquired over $7 million in assets. People were watching me. People wanted to be like me. People wanted to do what I was doing, but people didn't know what was really going on in the background. Here I am building this business. Everybody thinks I'm successful, but something inside of me was just being torn up. Like, what's going on? I don't feel successful. Everyone thinks I am. I know I can buy houses. I know I'm buying a lot of houses, but I'm not feeling what I thought I was going to get out of this. And one day I came to realize that, okay, I had $7 million in assets, but along with those assets came $4.5 million in debt. And that debt was controlling me. Technically, by the world standards, that was good debt. And I was using it for the right things. It was tied to assets that were producing cash flow and things like that. But the reality of the situation is that debt was very much wearing on me. It was pulling me down, and I was losing sleep at night. All I could think about was trying to make more money to pay off my debt. I had the pressure of having to perform at a very high level and knowing I had to perform at that level for the next 30 years without a blip in order for all of this to keep on working. So every single time there was a tenant who didn't pay or a repair that needed to be done, I just felt more pressure, like, all right, where is that money going to come from? And inevitably, when you have those kinds of properties, those kinds of things happen. It becomes a real part of business. And what was supposed to set me free did not set me free, is the point. That debt was controlling me. The lender was dictating how I lived my life, how hard I worked on my portfolio. And I had believed and had always been taught that if I bought rental properties, they would set me free. Well, they required a lot of work and a lot of attention. And, even when I got property managers, I was managing the property managers because they weren't doing a good job either. And so one day I came to realize that what was happening was I was becoming a slave of the lender. I was a servant to the lender. When I was reading my Bible, I saw that the rich shall rule over the poor and the borrower is a servant to lender. It's in Proverbs 22. And I felt very, very convicted at that time and realized that, okay, I am actually serving the lender. And other passages in the Bible says you cannot serve both God and money. And I was thinking, okay, this is a problem. I consider myself to be a Christian, but my attention, my heart, and everything right now is focused on money and making more of it and trying to get out of this debt because of the weight of carrying that all the time. I know, I get it. Some people can, handle that better and they don't have an issue with it. But the weight of that was a real problem for me. It caused, I was not as generous as I had once been. I was compromising my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids. I was working so many more hours just trying to get ahead of this and, hoping maybe I could make enough money to start making that debt go away. Well, to make enough money to make $4.5 million in debt go away is not easy. And I came to the conclusion I didn't want to go down that path. But before I tell you what my solution was, I need to tell you that one of the things that I realized in the midst of that was that the team of people who came together who so much wanted to help me, not one person asked me what my goals were. Not one person asked me what I wanted. Every single one of them just assumed that I wanted to accumulate assets and build wealth, and that was the thing to do. When the reality of the situation is, I got into business in hopes of being free and living a better life. And building this portfolio was doing the exact opposite for me. Now, for those of you who haven't been there before, I mean, you might find it hard to believe when people would suggest that kind of stuff to me. I thought, well, I'm smarter than them. I'm going to do just fine with it. But for people who have already been down this path and you're on this path, you know what I'm talking about. This isn't a quick path to freedom by sitting here and acquiring rental properties. There's a lot of work involved with managing them, and there's repairs, and there's vacancies, and somebody's got to make those mortgage payments when the tenant's not paying you. And I know that when you have 10 leveraged houses, if you have one tenant who doesn't pay you, you make no money that month. Those other 9 leveraged houses are basically just covering the mortgage on that one house. And if there's a repair, you don't make any money. You might not make money for a few months with 10 leveraged houses. And so it isn't what it's always cracked up to be. I get it. There's the exceptions to the rule where you get that smoking deal and you get that great property. And if you can build a portfolio of just that, great. But when you're going with the standard formulas that supposedly make sense, then it's not the case. Anyway, I decided that what I really wanted was life. I wanted freedom, and that needed to be the goal of my business. And I identified that all of this debt and all this responsibility and the additional workload was actually robbing me of the life that I wanted. So I ended up transforming my entire business. And in a moment there, I just said, that's it. I'm not borrowing anymore. In addition to that, I mean, I'm looking at my tax returns and I'm paying over $300,000 a year in interest to the lender. And I'm thinking, well, the lender makes $300,000 before I can even think about paying myself. And so, not only am I paying the lender $300,000 and then having to pay taxes and everything else, when I could sit there and gross $600,000 or $700,000, I was lucky if at the end of the day, 150 of it was mine. The reality of the situation was I was making and bringing in a lot of money, but it was going out almost as fast as it was coming in. And so I wanted to change that. And I didn't want to pay a lender $300,000 a year anymore. And I wanted to, if I was going to go out and make 300,000, I wanted to make it for me, not for them. And so I basically said, no more borrowing. I can't borrow money anymore. And as a real estate investor, I had already faced some things, the thought of how are you going to do this without borrowing? I just said, well, I live in a state that continuously is coming against real estate investors. They keep on passing laws, and every time they pass a law, we find a way to get it done. So I'm just going to act like there was a law passed that said Steve Cook can't borrow money anymore. What would he do, and how is he going to do it? And so I developed a whole way to do my investing without borrowing anymore. And really, it was just a problem, and I had to get creative. And I've been doing debt-free investing ever since. And the rental portfolio that I have today, I love it. It's not as big as it was back then, but the thing is, today it's completely debt-free. And my debt-free portfolio provides enough income for me to live and experience an abundant life. There's hardly any management to it because it's a smaller portfolio. And so life is easy. And if the goal of my life was to build wealth and that was the most important thing to me, I might do things differently, but that's not why I got into business. Wealth doesn't automatically equal a better life. I found that out the hard way. I mean, I was building wealth and building it very quickly, but it was sucking the life out of me. And I wanted a business that was going to give me life. So it was really important for me to do that. So, you know, don't sit there and look at every single person who is acquiring a whole bunch of real estate and, building up their net worth and accumulating more and more assets as a successful person. It all depends upon how you decide to define success. If that is success to you, and accumulating assets at the expense of everything else that's important in life, then by all means go for it. But if success to you is being free so that you can live and experience life on your terms and with who you want to be with, when you want to be with them, and and just giving you the freedom, then it might be different. And I want to encourage you, have an open mind. So keep on following us, subscribe. We're going to be sharing a lot of debt-free investing techniques in the future. And I might even be doing an update of my debt-free investing course and making that available to the world for free. So have a blessed day. We'll talk soon.